on, y'all? Johnny Wheeler Reacts. I'm Johnny Wheeler. Welcome back. Today, I have the one part that I did not even mean to skip over. It's part three of Americans Living Abroad. It happened like as I was doing part four, and I realized, oh man, I haven't even started. I was editing part four actually, which will be coming out a little later today or later in the evening, depending on when you're watching it. Whenever where you're at. Um, I noticed that number one, I hadn't even got the playlist started. Number two, um, which I will do. Number two, I'd completely skipped over part three, and I was like, oh no! I'd had it put in my watch later to keep track of it, so when I did do it, I must have just completely forgotten. So apologies, y'all. So y'all may get these about the same time today. I wanted to make up for it, make good on it, and so hopefully some of these we'll have probably seen in part four, maybe even part two, even. I'm not sure. But hopefully y'all enjoy it. Hit the like button, please subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you know whenever I drop one. Uh, you know, I'm trying to stick to a schedule, but sometimes life happens, y'all, and it just doesn't happen. So I try to do them just whenever I can. That way I'm not too worried about it until I get like a solid, repetition going. But here we go, y'all.
Currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you?
Oh my gosh, such a great question. I have so many. The one that sticks out of my mind right now is the first time I celebrated the 4th of July, and the Kiwis were like, oh, happy 4th of July. And I'm like, yeah, suckers. We broke away from the Queen a long time ago, and we have freedom, and blah, blah, blah. And they were like, hold on. What freedoms don't we have? And why is it
Yeah,
bad
we
that
saw
other
this in
countries
part
work
four.
together to protect each other and help each other? And America's always talking about freedom and what freedoms do you have that we don't have? And I was like, hold up. All this rhetoric that I was told my whole life, the land of the free, we need to fight for our freedom, and it's such a value in the American society. And when you think about how many countries are just as free, where does this freedom value come from? I mean, it came back from the Revolutionary War, but hello, there's a lot of countries that are free. It was eye-opening.
American currently living abroad, what is one?
One thing that I have to like comment on it. I've heard so many stories from people in Europe and abroad. Period. Whether they be Americans living abroad or just whoever, they constantly get asked by Americans, "Have you met the Queen?" Like if they're from the UK, they have you met the Queen? And somebody I spoke with, uh, I've never once had anybody that I've met from any part of Europe, whether it be UK or otherwise, ask me as an American, "Have you met the president?" I just realized that that's never happened, and so, and to answer, no, I haven't. I never have. But yeah. So it's by the same token, it's just hilarious that way.
Time that made you realize that America really messed you?
Did y'all know that in other countries, they can go to the pharmacy and actually get what they need? I live in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia right now, and I went to the pharmacist and I was like, hi, I think I kind of have like a UTI. Like, do you have any pain medicine, any cranberry? And she's like, why don't I just give you antibiotic? And I was like, then I go back and I'm like, hi, I'm going to South Africa next week, like on safari, like any good, mosquito repellent? And she's like, girl, you want anti-malarials? And then I get bold with it, right? I go in there, on another occasion and I'm like, I'm back, I'm waiting for my birth control, like, to come from the US. Like, it's taking a while, prescriptions and doctors and all that. And she literally threw the birth control at me. Amazing.
An American currently living abroad, what is one
Never
time that
mind the
made you
fact that
realize
she
that
threw it at
America
you.
really messed you?
Just one? If this tells you anything, I was only supposed to be abroad for a year. I'm on year 10. Yeah. Essentially, what I learned was me living, traveling, and working around the world was easier and cheaper than me just living in the US. So why would I go back to the US to live and spend more when I can travel and live in other countries and spend less? Make it make sense.
Time that made you
That's a
realize that
solid
America
argument.
really messed you up.
So I spent about 4 years in Berlin, Germany, working in advertising. And coming from New York, where my first 8 years in the industry, I just, you don't take vacation. You just don't really do that. Well, I had to have a sit down with the CEO of my company and the head of HR where they took my laptop and took my work phone and told me I could not come back to the office for 3 weeks because I had to use my vacation time. They were afraid that I was going to sue the company for not being allowed to take my vacation time. So they made sure that I literally could not work. Imagine that happening in the US. Someone literally taking your computer and your work phone away and say, go, come back in 3 weeks, enjoy your vacation. Honestly, Europe has a lot going for it that I wish Americans would understand.
Absolutely.
One time that made you realize.
And only here it only happens like when you're visibly shaken or like you're really about to crack and they're like, listen, and you've got a boss that's not a complete, whatever. And they understand, like, listen, you've got days stacked up, take them, and that happens, but it's nothing like that. It's very few and far between. Yeah.
Realize that America really messed you up.
I was working as a teacher in South Korea, and a lot of students actually have these little box cutters to cut stuff. I was kind of concerned that these were allowed in school because I was scared that people were going to stab each other.
What is one time that made you realize that America really messed you
Fair,
up?
I guess.
So just for a little context, I live in Latvia now, but when this happened to me, I was working in the UK as a bartender. And my coworkers and I were talking about gun violence in the US, and they were kind of making jokes like, oh, I'm surprised you graduated and you didn't get shot first, and stuff like that. And I guess I was trying to defend it, so I was saying, it's not as bad as the news makes it seem. I only know one school that had an active shooter and had to go into lockdown. And, for me, I only had one gun threat in high school, and it was just a threat, and one when I was in elementary school. And then my coworkers kind of looked at me like, you what? And you think that's normal? And I was like, yeah. It's not even that bad.
You're an American currently living abroad.
Yeah,
What is one
I
time
totally
that made you
get
realize
that.
that America really messed you up?
I'm a U.S. citizen currently living in Costa Rica. We have to be careful about the use of the word American since the Americas are continents. Anyway, I have so many examples of how the U.S. fucked me up, specifically Florida. We got to Costa Rica the second week in November, obviously still deep in the throes in the US with COVID. And coming from Florida where there's so many anti-maskers and COVID deniers, it was surreal to go to these establishments here where everyone's following the Ministry of Health's rules. There's hand washing stations outside of every establishment. There are people taking your temperature to go into grocery stores and certain restaurants. People are giving you distance. Everyone is compliant with masks. And I found myself so defensively postured, ready to argue because I had gotten into so many arguments in Florida with anti-maskers and COVID deniers. It's amazing when people don't politicize a virus.
American currently living abroad.
That's so true because, sorry for all the pausing, it's just, I got so many takes on that. Even here where I am, you had stuff like that, and you had people that, if you're like a privately owned business, well, it's probably the same over there too. They don't have to serve you if you don't comply with, we want masks in our store. They don't, and it's like, some people they just don't get it. I don't understand. It's like almost like a childlike mentality of like, you're not going to tell me what to do. In that instance, yeah, they are. So.
What is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
2008 or 9, 20 years old, Munich, Germany. City passes the vibe check, no doubt, but I didn't have anyone with me. And I'm trying to get cigarettes from a machine, my ID doesn't work. Cop shouts from across the street, he's on his way to me. Hey, you, sir, is there anything I can help you with? And immediately no, I'm sorry, don't worry about it, I'm getting out of here anyway. And I keep it moving, and he's like, no, hey, you. And I keep it pushing, like, hey, you? Nah, get the fuck out of here. And the next cop stops me, and I immediately drop everything that's in my hands as I take my hands out of my pockets so I don't get shot. And So he ends up buying me a pack of cigarettes, bringing me to the nearest bar, explaining to me that they go to 4 years of college to do this, get paid $50,000 a year more than our cops, and
Wow.
bought me a drink.
What is one time that made you realize that America
That's
really
amazing.
messed you up?
When I lived in Paris, my period changed because there wasn't as much hormones in the food. If you live abroad for any length of time, your period will
What?
also become different over time and revert when you return.
American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
I've got nothing to say about that for obvious reasons. I'm not gonna know anything about it. But yeah, I'll leave that one alone.
So for me, it was a few different times all while I was living in Australia. One time with the various shootings that we have here in the States, my boss came to me and he was like, "Are you okay? How are you feeling? Do you need some time off?" And I was like, "Why?" And he was like, "Because I heard about the shooting that happened back in the States." I had to sit there and have an honest moment with myself and him to realize that I had built up a numbness to all the shootings because they happen all the time. So that sucked. Number 2. I have horrific cramps. I always have. They make me pass out. I throw up. I've been in the emergency room I don't know how many times at this point. It's just how it's been. I fought against it, but I finally had my roommate take me to the emergency room, and my total was $100 when I left. As someone who was only on a working holiday visa and not a $2,000 bill like it would have been in the States.
Right.
And currently living
2 to
abroad, what is
3,000.
one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
I first started school and asked them when we have our first training for school shootings, and they asked me, "What is that?" I walked into a supermarket and I was confused as to why there weren't any guns on the shelves. When I went on a walk with my friends and they wanted to walk over someone's farm because it was a shortcut, and I said I didn't want to go because I was afraid of getting shot, and they looked at me like I was crazy. When I saw police cars driving up and I realized that nobody besides me was scared shitless. When I watch political talk shows and they're actually having a conversation and discussing an actual topic instead of talking over each other and insulting each other. When I noticed that over here nudity and sexual expression was seen as natural and normal while violence is talked down upon, when in the States violence is everywhere and nudity and sexuality are taboo.
If you're an American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really...
Oh man, I got so many stories. As you may know, I'm an American living in Italy, and there have been so many times I'm thinking, oh my god, America is so messed up. Most recently is when I gave birth to my daughter. So I decided to give birth to my daughter here in Italy, and basically before you give birth, they recommend that you meet up with an anesthesiologist. Even if you don't want the epidural beforehand, they recommend you do so just in case, like an emergency, you really want one, or etc. So I didn't even end up getting the epidural, but I had to pay for the meeting, and I'm thinking, oh no, how much is this meeting gonna cost? It was 30 euros. 30 euros is the equivalent of maybe, let's say, like $40. And also, too, I stayed in the hospital for 3 days, got completely taken care of, and I didn't pay a cent. A cent.
Yeah, the meetings here would have been
American
like
currently
twice
living
that
abroad, what is one
easy.
time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
So I'm an American and I live in Norway right now. And one time I was going to help my friend with this project that she had, and this girl was still in high school. And so she was like, yeah, just come to my high school, you can help me out, yada, yada, yada. I was like, great. Where do I have to sign in when I get there? Do I need to wear a visitor's badge? Who do I talk to? What should I tell the front desk lady? She was like, what are you talking about? Just walk in and I'll meet you at my classroom. And my mind was blown. I was like, I can just walk into your school? Like, no, aren't they gonna call the police? Aren't they gonna send out an intruder alert? Like, I can't just walk into your high school and just walk straight to your classroom. No. Then I realized just how messed up it is that American high schoolers are like security prisons.
American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
So I live in Romania, and I feel like the most astonishing thing to me when I moved here was how easy it is to find someone to go out with, to go out and have drinks with, to go out and have dinner with. Any given day, somebody wants to go out.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the US, I feel like we're all so stressed out and miserable that we just want to stay home.
Yeah,
if you're an American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really...
So I live in Estonia now, and I remember the first year that I moved here, It was around the beginning of December, and I remember hearing like gunshots, like really loud gunshots, like, and a lot of them. So me being from Brooklyn,
But it's gonna be
I
fireworks.
immediately think that there's some crazy shootout going on outside. So I go and I look out the window, and sure enough, it's fireworks. Fireworks are kind of sort of illegal in New York City, so I was used to just automatically assuming that it was gunshots. Yeah, that's kind of when I realized that America's kind of messed up.
What is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
So when I was a teenager, I went out of the country one time to go on vacation to the Bahamas, and we were staying at this resort, and shit happened. I caught a virus that was going around the resort, and then I had an allergic reaction to the virus, and I couldn't really breathe. But the on-site paramedic had already left for the day, so the hotel concierge took us to the hospital in his van and just told us to call when we were ready to head back. So we go to the hospital, I get treated, and as we're leaving, my mom tries to give them her insurance card, and she's telling them, like, I'm so sorry, we've never been out of the country before, I don't know how to do this. They told her, like, oh no, you just keep that, we don't take insurance here. And the look on my mom's face was terrified, like, oh my god, we're gonna have to sell our house, terrified. This was when they realized we were Americans, and they were like, oh no, don't panic, you must be American, we have universal health care here, you just need to pick up your medicine in the lobby, you're fine. The medicine was $8, and they gave me a note to give to the airline to get back into my own country.
What's a celebrity impression that you can do? I'll go first.
Alright, that's the end of that one. Yeah, so a lot of those were once again like gun violence, and as much as I hate to say it, and I've said it in some previous videos, that's become the norm, unfortunately. And as I've said, I'm older, so yeah, it kind of existed when I was in school, but not like to the point of where it is now, like nowhere near. Like, I do remember a couple of shootings from some of the local schools in my area, and it was very unfortunate. But I'm from the South, and like I said, I'm from the American South, and to hear gunshots, like I live out in the sticks, to hear gunshots is not an unusual thing. I'm to the point where it's more, how can I put this, situational. Like if I'm in town or if I'm in the city and I hear gunshots, okay, that's a little bit different. Like what's going down, But out here, it's like it's mostly people like shooting target practice or hunting, So that's just me. And some of y'all that live out in the South, y'all get it. I know I ain't telling y'all nothing. Or even people out in the UK that live out in the sticks, not well, not in the UK because y'all don't have the guns like we do, not necessarily, but about hunting and things like that. So yeah, that was a good one. Hopefully y'all enjoyed it. Hopefully y'all will get both videos at the same time today, or they're close by. I may just release this one as is and keep the other one on the timeline, and I will get that dang playlist out today, or I'll try to get it worked on, and hit the bell icon once again. Keep the suggestions coming, y'all. Hit the like button, please subscribe. It would really help me out. For those that don't know and they're just joining the channel, welcome. Hopefully we can have a good time. If you want me to react to something, please put it in the comments of a video, or email me at jwreactions@gmail.com. I only do that for those that don't really want to shout out, but they want me to react to something. They don't want their name out there. That's totally fine. I get it. I've had a couple of people do that, and I appreciate you always. Until the next one, y'all, this is Johnny Wheeler, and I'm out.